don't know about that. I don't know what the cloaking is. I think I've seen that on TV, on Star Trek or something. But they have an uncanny ability to just be able to pop up in front of you.
Well, I mean, give me...
Without you seeing them, like walking towards you or something, they just kind of, you might be doing something out in the open. Yeah, they have this ability to be able to. I don't know if it's some kind of any special ability or not, but it just they'll just pop up in front of you.
Way back to where we were at. And about the time he got there, literally on the other side of this bush where we're actually hunkered down kind of on our knees, just kind of sitting low, if you will, in a shadow, we hear this real loud bam, 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 literally 10 feet away, coming from, if I'm sitting on one knee, if you will, if you can imagine that, and looking up, the sound is coming from probably about 8 or 9 feet, 10 feet off the ground. That's where the sound's coming from. But it's also coming from about 10 feet away on the other side of this bush that I can literally see through, and I don't see anything there. But we heard this loud bam, bam, bam. And it was almost like one was counting coup on us, like the Indians might do. They might run up and whack you with a stick just to let you know they could do it without killing you. And it's almost like that's what that felt like. It was like having coup counted on you. And again, that's just kind of a weird statement by me, but that's what it seemed like. And we're just amazed, and all four of us were right there when that happened. And then it got totally quiet for a second, and then we heard more movement behind us. So at that point, we feel like we're being surrounded and like they're coming up very close. So each one of us takes a perimeter position, and we all did this without speaking, and our guy from Florida, being a deputy and also a former Desert Storm veteran, he's very tactical minded, so we just did all these things automatically. We're all covering our little zone here. And then I hear something like it's taken 2 or 3, or maybe like 1 or 2 big heavy steps rushing toward me, because I'm still facing where the sound came from. And I jumped back about 2 or 3 feet, expecting to get hit by something, and there's nothing there. So at that point, I kind of get my mind right, and I just start talking real gentle and nice and saying it's okay, and show the open-handed thing, which is something Robert W. Morgan and his philosophy of, a lot of times show that you've got a nice open hands, that you don't have a weapon, and, just, again, positive intention. And I walked up behind the bush, and, of course, there's nothing there. So that was pretty amazing night, and I learned a lot about Bigfoot behavior that night, just in that 2-hour period of time.
He said that he saw there's an airstrip on this piece of property. He said he was walking, that he was on his horse going down the north side of the airstrip. They've planted a whole bunch of I can't remember what they call it. It's a type of millet that gets real tall. They had a bunch of that stuff planted along the side of the airstrip as a windbreak, and or Lespedeza or something like that. Anyway, so he's patrolling along down through there on the north side of the airstrip, outside of the strip of tall millet, and he sees out in front of him, beyond the end of the airstrip, he sees a booger walking along out there through the brush. And he said, "Dadgum, I got you now." So he spurred his horse and took off up there towards it to get closer to it. And he said, all of a sudden, he said the son of a gun just disappeared into heat waves. He said, "Have you ever seen the movie Pale Rider?" And the Clint Eastwood movie Pale Rider? And I said, or Skibby, not Pale Rider. It's the one where they goes to the town called Lago or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it not Pale Rider? Shoot, I can't remember the name of it.
I don't know what it's called. I know what you're talking about.
But where he rides off at the end of the movie and he just disappears into the heat waves.
Yeah.
He said this thing. He said I was less than 100 yards from it and closing on it at a pretty good speed, and he said it disappeared into heat waves right in front of my eyes. And I said, well, about 3 or 4 years later, I was working on a project down in southwest Mississippi, down in the Delta area, and I was over near Sunflower, Mississippi, on a 3-day weekend. And I was doing some research. And I was over on an old plantation and talking to some folks. There'd been some sightings and stuff. And this guy took me out to a field, and he said that he'd been working in that area since he was a little boy. And he said he'd hit 3 times in his life out in this one field that they had seen boogers that either appeared or disappeared out of heat waves that appeared out in that field. And he said the first time it happened, he said he was on the tractor. He was going down through there and said he was cultivating, so he was having to be real careful. He was cultivating cotton, so he was having to be real careful not, to keep his tractor lined out straight. And said he would just glance up every once in a while. And he said he glanced up, and he said about 50 yards in front of him was this column, this shimmering column of heat waves that he hadn't noticed before. And he said it was so distinct, distorting what was behind it so distinctly. He said it startled him, and he said he actually it was an old tractor that had the old lever-type clutch on the sides, like a B model John Deere or something like that, or an A model. He said he pulled the clutch lever up on the tractor and came to a stop. He said all of a sudden, he said a Bigfoot, they call him a hairy man. He said a hairy man stepped out of those shimmering heat waves and looked at him, and then took one big jump to the east and disappeared in all the brush and stuff in the hedgerow right there. And he said. And then he said another time, he said they were going back in there, and he said they were working, and they were going to take a break, and that they came driving out into the field or walking out of the hedgerow there on the south side of the field, and he said there was one walking down along that same hedgerow out in the edge of the field. And he said they were standing there looking at it, and he said there was this big area of shimmering heat waves, and he said it walked into that and disappeared. And he said another time.
No, go ahead.
And he said another time he drove out.
I'm relating to what you're saying. I mean, I've never heard it described as a heat wave, but that's pretty much what I've seen.
Yeah.
That blur.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
And he said another time he came driving his tractor out into the field. Said he came through on the little field road. Said as soon as he came out into the corner of the field there, he said there was one walking. He said the soybeans. He said at that time they had soybeans planted in there, and he said the soybeans were up a little bit over knee high. And he said there was one walking east to west right out in the middle of the field. And he said, and it shocked him. He said it was just broad daylight. He said right out there in the middle of the field. And said he sitting there looking at it, and he said all of a sudden, he said he didn't realize. He said the thing started shimmering, and he realized it was one of these heat wave areas, and it just disappeared. And he said he could see everything beyond it, front of it, behind it, everything. It just flat-ass disappeared. And reports of that, and then experiencing myself personally, boogers that disappeared that we couldn't find, and then personally being up on them in other places where I knew they were so close that I could smell their breath. And I knew they were there, but I just flat-ass couldn't see them. These guys they're the masters of concealment.